So now that we've got our heated tubing attached to the Airvo 2, we've got a 5-foot tube here where we have options for attachments. Now, like I mentioned on the outset, that this can be used with a nasal cannula. So there is a nasal cannula attachment here for high flow nasal cannula therapy. In this application, what we're actually going to do is tracheostomy humidity. So there's two options here. This is a direct connect to the trach type adapter that we can use. That's one option. And another option is to use this universal adapter. Now the universal adapter is useful because you can plug in different types of masks, face mask or trach mask, on this end now. So what I'm going to do is get it set up for trach humidity by using my trach mask, and I'll just attach that right here. So now that that's ready to go, I can get the unit set up for trach humidity. So the first thing, of course, we'll start it. There's our power button here, so we'll press and hold that for a few seconds until we get the on beep and the light comes on the system. And then it goes through a little bit of a self-check, so give it a little time, and then it'll show you last disinfection. And as long as we're okay there, we get the swirling lights and the unit will start up. You'll hear the blower motor start to go. It'll start to heat up at that point at whatever the last settings were that were put into the unit. So once this comes up now, it's going to show me numbers, and it'll show me three numbers. It's going to show me the numbers for the temperature in Celsius right here. It'll show me the liters per minute that we're delivering through the tubing, and it'll show us an FiO2. So right now we don't have any oxygen being bled into the system, so of course we're at 21% for a FiO2, 0.21. So if we were to add oxygen over here, where I had showed you before, where we add the oxygen into the system, that would be reflected in this number here. So right now we're set up at 30 liters per minute, and we've got a temperature of 32 Celsius. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go through how to change and put different settings into the system. So in order to do that, we'll start with this right arrow button and give that a press. And the first thing that's going to pop up is the temperature. And you notice that the temperature is actually set to 37, but it showed 32 before because 32 is what it was heated up to at that point. Now if I wanted to change this, I would go over to the up and down arrow and press and hold them both until I unlock the system. Let me get my fingers in there the right way. Press them both and hold, and that will unlock it. Now you notice I have options from 31 up to 37. So I can go ahead and adjust this down, and I can adjust it up. Typically optimum trach humidity temperature, 34 up to about 39. In our case we have 34 to 37. So we would probably pick 37 for optimal, and if the patient felt it was a little too warm, maybe down to 34. Keep in mind we're also concerned with tracheal secretions. If they're real thick, the patient should either be on it more or have the temperature higher. Now you notice after I wait a few seconds here, we're locked in again to the 34. So if I'm good with that, I could leave it. Again, if I want to unlock, I press these two up and down arrow keys to unlock it again. Next we can go to the flow. So if we go to the flow here, we're in liters per minute. 30 is very common for trach humidity, and that's where we'll leave it here. But you'll notice that if I wanted some options, I could unlock it, and I could go quite high. I could go up to 60 or down to 10. So I could turn it up quite high. Trach humidity, that would be quite a bit. If we're using it for respiratory distress and that kind of thing, we might go higher using a nasal cannula, but in this case 30 will be sufficient. And if we, again, we leave it, and it'll lock itself in. Now we're locked. If I go to the next one, there's our FiO2, and of course that's at 21 because we're not adding oxygen into the system at this point. So that's how we do our adjustments. Pretty straightforward on changing it by holding down these two keys. And then of course we go to the next one always by hitting this right arrow. Will show us where we're at. So if we go back, and we go back to this system, I want to show you one more thing. This is to go to the junior mode. Now the junior mode, if I press and hold the right arrow key again, if I press and hold that, I get into the junior mode. And what the junior mode is going to do is limit my flow down to 25, and it'll limit my temperature to 34. So right now the temperature is high, and that's going to drop down to 34, but that's what junior mode is. So if we wanted to limit those temperatures for any reason and the flow, we could do that. But important thing to know is typically we use it in the adult mode. So to get out of that junior mode, press and hold that right arrow key again, and we'll go back to the adult mode where it's more commonly used. And that's how to use the Airvo 2.